All 4 of the Chaos Gods have Daemon Primarchs. We have Bobby G and the Lion. So it's got us thinking, are we going to see Leman Russ? Could Rogal Dorn make a comeback? And are we going to have a Primarch party? Or is this going to be a major Primarch problem? I am James Jordan, aka The Bard, and today I am joined by Careful Beard.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Love. And Katie Foe.
Hi.
Jinx.
Welcome.
Welcome. Now, we're all very excited here about this topic because it could be the future, could be the destiny we've all been waiting for a lot of factions, or it could be our utter undoing. We don't really know. Basically, all 4 of the Chaos Gods are out.
Yep.
All 4 of them have big, scary Daemon Primarchs. And then a little Space Wolf book came out recently, and we all got a bit excited because there was some funny wording about monsters and excluding certain unit types and infantry and monsters and all that kind of stuff in the Space Wolf book, but it didn't have any monsters. And the eagle-eyed amongst everyone noticed that Bobby G is a monster. The Lion is a monster. Is that therefore a little bit of a spoiler or potential that Leman Russ might be on the horizon?
Yes.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
what I
I've
think
seen
compounds that as well is that it definitely feels like with Space Wolves, especially after Chaos Knights having been released recently, that has a very different art style and sort of book build to then Space Wolves and the Chaos books. And we know, looking at the timelines, that everything's kind of changed in Games Workshop's land. So
yeah,
maybe
the timeline they proposed to us at the beginning of the year hasn't kind of been what happened.
Absolutely not, no. So maybe Space Wolves have been brought forward and thus is distance from the Primarch. Now, as a light show of hands, excited, yay or nay on Leman Russ?
On Leman Russ?
Yeah, if he's going to come, is that an exciting prospect or a scary prospect, do you think?
I think it's good.
Okay, exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Exciting.
Yeah.
I think it might be worrying.
Right.
Now, I say this
Because you don't like wolves.
No, I love the Wolves. I think it'll be really exciting. Now, also, when I say that, it's more from a sort of structural perspective for this conversation. I think it'll be amazing if we get a Leman Russ model. It'll be super, super exciting. But I feel like, are we entering into a territory now with Warhammer where, well, 40k especially, where every faction now has like a super unit. Like everyone needs a kind of giant model or a centerpiece, as opposed to them being like, as 40k used to be kind of more like troops and tanks and more like a battle simulator. Are we getting more and more like superhero characters? Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but does it potentially, if another Loyalist Primarch comes out, is it again adding to this kind of super character aesthetic that is more reminiscent of something, say, like Sigma?
Or Heresy.
Or
Just
Heresy,
thinking
yes.
about it, like Heresy typically gets played at 3,000 points, and from what I've been told, that is mainly because people want to have the Primarchs.
Yes. Yeah.
So, is that coming to 40k?
Well, this is a really good point of like, we know that 30k is super popular, and we know how popular that book series has been, especially with the End of the Death just having sort of happened. So is there a push now to have every single Primarch as part of all the Space Marine Legions?
I don't think they're going to necessarily do all of them, because some are dead.
This is
You
true.
can't bring
start.
Sanguinius
Yeah,
back.
you can't bring it back.
I mean, Iron Hands aren't going to get a Primarch anytime soon.
No, I feel like Raven Guard will be a weird one to come back, because old Raven Boy is in a bit of a weird spot.
Yeah, I mean, if you go by the main ones, Blood Angels aren't going to get their Primarch. And because Space Wolves, Russ is knocking about somewhere in the war.
He does exist.
It would make sense for him to come back. It feels like, I think generally speaking, with these big types of characters in Warhammer or otherwise, you tend to feel like the heroes are often outnumbered.
Yes.
So I think there will always be more big, scary Chaos Primarchs than Loyalist ones.
Yes.
And it's taken such a long time to get to this point where we only have 2 Loyalist Primarchs, when the whole Primarch thing started with Thousand Suns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost 10 years ago now. It would take a
surely.
long time for them all to come anyway.
Yes.
I feel like it would be much slower than the Chaos. But do you think we would see any more Chaos Primarchs come back?
You might have one to represent a undivided legion, but you've already got Abaddon for the Black Legion. There's not going to be someone that supersedes Abaddon.
No.
So I suppose they could introduce a new faction being led by a undivided Primarch. You mentioned
I would
Lorgar.
love it if they brought Lorgar back as a really scary demon, because he is a demon man, and kind of use that to bring the demons back into the fold, because we know they don't really have a codex now with the demon kin for the word bearers, because that just kind of makes sense in my brain.
The demon kin have been about before with Khorne demon kin, and I mean all of the 4 Chaos Gods have a detachment at least. But I think that's mainly for gameplay purposes. I think if they were to redo the demons and have them like folded into Chaos Space Marine somehow, it would make a lot of sense for that to be led by Lorgar.
Absolutely,
because he's Mr. Demon Man.
He is Mr. Demon Man. And I think also, I think the Demon Primarchs especially have loads of scope of what to do from a model range. Like we've seen the amazing stuff they did with Fulgrim, and like Angron and stuff like this, that you can kind of be a bit more creatively free, I suppose. That said, when you look at something like Logan Grimnar from the Space Wolves range, it shows what you can do for just like a single model. Like we know that with the Lion, like you can still make them super imposing, have a major presence on the battlefield. So yeah, I do think that we could definitely see more Primarchs. What is then very interesting is then will it open up a kind of Space Wolves are getting a Primarch, or maybe getting a Primarch, right?
I think
it's probably happening. Dark Angels have had one, and Ultramarines have had one. Now, the Ultramarines one is interesting because Ultramarines don't necessarily have their own book.
No.
And Bobby G is Lord Commander of the Imperium and stuff, so he's kind of the Primarch for all of the Space Marines that aren't the specialist ones yet.
He's Space Marine number 1.
But could we get Vulcan?
Well, this is, I'm quite interested in Vulcan, because if you remember, they had that teaser of a salamander.
They did, Katie.
So while they might not currently have a book, they might have something coming in the future, a book or a supplement or something, which, I mean, Vulcan makes sense to come back, because he can't die. And I like Vulcan. So I'd like him to come back.
Well, yeah, but that's a really good point. Like, we now know they're happy to do these kind of detachments periodically, right? And do big things with the Balance Data State. There's no reason to not then also release rules like that as well. Because you could release a model and then give you the rules alongside that model in these periodic things. Or do you think they're going to be like box locked? Do you think it's going to be more of like... Because remember, the Lion came out pretty randomly at the end of the Arcs of Omen books.
Well, yeah, I mean, Gilliman came out randomly as well.
The
Chaos ones have come out with their factions. But the weird thing is, outside the Lion and Space Wolves, Lehman Russ. It would, to me, it would feel a bit weird if they did any of the other chapters Primarchs, because they don't have a model range. And with Dark Angels and Space Wolves, they have codex supplements. Whereas when you compare that to Chaos, where they have codexes and more fleshed out factions, like proper factions, where they don't have any like vanilla Space Marine units, they'd have to do that with a chapter that isn't one of the main 3. So then do you then not have codex supplements for Blood Angels, Dark Angels and Space Wolves?
Can I counter with Black Templars? Because they do have their own supplement. And they could
Is that
have
a codex supplement?
Templars.
They have their own book.
Now look, I've been thinking about this for a time.
Because they have a Primarch that could come back. Technically.
Look, I've
the Fists don't have their separate supplement, but the Black Templars do.
Now, look, this is controversial, Imperial Fist fans, but Bobby G is the Avenging Son. Yes, he's the Avenging Son. Could we see Rogal Dorn come back as the Revenging Son? Thanks, Past James. Another excellent and exciting show, I'm sure. But enough about him. I'm bringing news from the future. The 41st millennium is filled with loads of exciting future and exotic tech that makes the day-to-day seem mundane. But you can let go of the past and embrace the delicious future with today's sponsor, Magic Spoon. We're not messing around here. We're talking cereal, one of the most important and joyful foods there is. The breakfast wizards at Magic Spoon bring their cereal sorcery to the table with boxes that are high protein, have no artificial ingredients, and taste superb. This is a bowl of cinnamon toast. It's my favorite, tastes great, and do you know what else it tastes like? And that's not all. Magic Spoon also offer a selection of treats that taste amazing and are a great protein boost to help you throw off the shackles of time. Eating this here blueberry muffin bar is exactly how I travelled to the future. Magic Spoon products will not actually transport you through time, but they are great for keto, celiac, diabetic, and carb-conscious lifestyles. Magic Spoon are so confident in their products that they back it with a 100% happiness guarantee online. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund you the money with no questions asked. To make Magic Spoon even more delicious, you can use our code TABLETOP or click the link in the description below. So when you try cereal or treats from Magic Spoon, you can get $5 off your order. You can also find them at Amazon or at your local grocery store. So who knew the future would taste so good? Now be gone, back to the past, and leave me to enjoy my cereal.
Revengeance.
Because I feel like
The revengeing.
Because I feel like his character is very similar to Bobby G, and would be weird if they just released kind of like Imperial Fist version of Bobby G, right? But if he was to come back as a Black Templar, or be the Primarch of the Black Templars, or the Imperial Fists et al., like the head of the Templars, he would then be, you could have him, give him an eye patch.
Yeah.
Give him he's taken the black. He then has got Sigismund's sword on him or something. He's got a robot hand.
I feel like wherever he is, he's probably been going through some stuff.
He's not a bit of a dork to be a Black Templar, though. He's
He's not a dork.
He's very straight-laced Imperial Fist. I think that the Templars are a bit fanatical.
He can,
from
the books I've read, he has a rage.
No, sure,
if you get on,
he's also very Codex compliant.
Well, he was, but for 10,000 years he's been in your little maze contraption, or whatever it is.
I thought the Necrons had him.
Do the Necrons have his hand?
Someone's got his
No,
hand.
the Imperial Fists have his hand.
Where is he?
The Fist of Dawn. But principally that thing of if he were to return, and if he has been imprisoned via also that would make sense. If he has been imprisoned by the Necrons, he's going to come back. He's not going to take too kindly to Xenos, I don't think.
Yeah.
So I feel like...
Oh, could you imagine if on a Black Templar crusade against Necrons, they find him?
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so many ways...
Because that makes sense, because they go after the Xenos.
They go after... This is the thing, when... In my head, you have a very strict, the Imperial Fists have Rogal Dorn, Salamanders have Vulcan, but these are obviously from the context of it being old school, the legions from the heresy.
But it's not that anymore.
Yeah,
and I think it would be a really cool way to spice it up.
Yeah, you could do so much with that. It also then does free up the options for Vulcan could come back and kind of be utilised for a lot of the Loyalist chapters in the Imperium. You could definitely look at bringing back, the Khan.
Yeah.
Could be run by anyone. Do you know what I mean?
Shows
Could be more flexible.
They're already happy to push the boat out by the fact that they've given a successor chapter a supplement rather than the actual chapter itself.
Exactly. Are they going to be more fruity with it? Are we just going to have okay, all the Primarchs exist. You could take one, but you can take anyone in any of the Space Marine armies.
Would you like the current theories?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Right. So the traditional account is that Rogal Dorn is generally considered to have perished in the Sword of Sacrilege during the First Black Crusade.
Heresy.
Limited evidence. The only physical evidence of Dorn found after the attack was his left hand, which was later used as a relic by the Imperial Fists.
Yeah.
Ongoing speculation. The lack of Dorn's body and the vague nature of his death have fueled various theories about his fate. Possible scenarios. Some fans speculate Dorn may have been captured by Chaos forces, possibly to be used as a weapon or for experimentation, while others believe he may still be alive in some capacity. Conflicting accounts! There are instances in the lore where characters seem to imply that Dorn might be alive, such as Vulcan's statement to Captain Conrad of the Imperial Fists. And then finally, uncertainty and debate, the exact circumstances surrounding Dorn's death and the absence of definitive proof regarding his fate continue to spark debate and speculation amongst fans. So, who knows?
Didn't the Iron Warriors try and steal Imperial Fist Gene-Seed at some point?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but it then would make sense if they have tracked him.
The Imperial Fists and the Iron Warriors worked together very briefly against some orcs.
I don't know if the Iron Warriors were involved in the First Black Crusade. But they did certainly deploy the Iron Cage after the Siege of Terror to mess up some Imperial Fists.
The what?
Yeah.
The Iron Cage. It's basically they basically lured them into a massive game of 40k Mousetrap.
Yeah.
And just murdered them.
Murdered lots of Imperial Fists.
That sounds really fun.
Cut them down.
Where can I read about that?
That's a great question.
Some of this, there's also a lot of stuff from the middling. The post-heresy, pre-40k.
Yeah.
That big gap of 10,000 years. But there's loads of cool stuff that's alluded to, but never covered.
You know what would be quite interesting, just sticking with Dawn for a second, you would expect if someone was going to try and not escape. What's the word? Not release. What's the word I'm trying to think of? Get someone out of jail. What's the word?
Jailbreak? Break him out?
Rescue. There we go. If a group were to rescue Rogal Dorn from the clutches of chaos, it would probably be a questing fleet of
Black Templars.
Black Templars.
Because also the cool thing is as well, we know the Black Templars aren't compliant based on their size.
Yeah.
So they definitely aren't just 2,000 strong.
Yeah.
They aren't a
No.
chapter. They're
There's
a full
only 2,000
legion.
of them.
Yeah. But I think it's that thing of like there's definite scope now for the way the legions have all sort of become amalgamated into the forces of the Imperium. Like we know from like some of the books, like Bobby G will command Imperial Fist forces to go do certain tasks. They might not like it, but he is the commander of the Imperium. The Lion's now back and is helping out the Blood Angels. He's best mates with Dante and all the rest of it. But it's that kind of thing of that strife and awkwardness of the Imperium and how the Primarchs tessellate around each other. Because the Demon Primarchs are mad and eating souls and smashing up cities and stuff. But the Loyalist Primarchs have a lot more like strife.
But they're also like, they work together.
Yeah, they have to. And I think that would be interesting if you could now, in the world of 40k, probably release them as individual models, then be far more loose about how you deploy them in an army perspective. You don't have to run salamanders with Vulcan. It would be advised to, but they could just be Space Marine units.
Yeah.
That you can only have like one or maybe two, I don't know how it would work. But yeah, the Lion only works with Dark Angels or whatever, or like you could then have Rogal Dorn that only works with the Black Templars. You could have certain limitations, but the Khan, Vulcan...
I mean, there's certainly enough of a Space Marine range to be able to represent their chapter.
Yeah,
exactly, right?
What would you do with Khan?
Today's video is brought to you thanks to the support from our on-demand members. It's due to their amazing support that we're able to produce shows just like this one. As well as supporting the channel, our members get access to at least 2 additional battle reports every week, as well as full codex reviews, painting tutorials, our weekly on-demand exclusive talk show, all of our competitive 40k league games, and so much more. And we add to our library of content every single week. You can join our on-demand community today by downloading our app or heading to the website. And right now we have an introductory offer for new customers, so there's never been a better time to join on demand. Thanks for watching. Let's get back to the show.
Khan's a tricky one. I mean,
So you two, I can't remember, I don't know if it was actually in context of something or if it was just a joke because of the game you were playing, but you were joking that next edition would be the edition of the bike.
yes.
Now, is that a genuine theory or are you being silly?
I really feel it is going to be the edition of the bike because that, to me, feels like the thing that's missing from Space Marines and Chaos.
Space Marines have a very limited bike range currently. You've got the Outriders. I wonder if it would be a smart decision for them to do away with those Outrider kits because they're still the ones that came in the first box. They're still push fit. Get rid of Outriders and make them jet bikes.
Yep.
That would be cool.
That'd be cool.
Chaos bikes are still used by players now, but there's no direct replacement. Orcs need new bikes. The war bikes are super old and don't go with the current range. Sisters don't have any cavalry, and so many other factions have cavalry type things. You've got jet bikes for Eldar, you've got horses for Imperial Guards, you've got the bikes for the Gene Stealer Colts, the dirt bikes, you've got the bikes for the Custodes. There's actually not many factions without bikes, and we saw Deathwing get updated this edition. Ravenwing could then be updated.
They need an update now to go along with it.
Ravenwing could be updated in 11th edition. That then opens up the possibility for expansions for White Scars. It would actually unlock a huge amount of stuff.
I would allow. So where is Khan? The Khan currently.
My understanding of Khan, and correct me if I'm wrong, White Scars fans, but at the Siege of Terror, he had a one-on-one fight with Mortarion and won, but was
badass.
very, very wounded in the process. So he banished Mortarion back to the warp, but basically nearly died. And as of the final couple of books, is in like cryostasis under the palace.
Right.
So in theory, as far as I'm aware, unless something's changed and someone's
He is alive and
busted him
he
out.
is in
'cause,
safe hands.
this is the
Theoretically.
thing. As far as the heresy ends,
Yeah.
spoilers, Dawn's around,
Yeah.
Vulcan's around, the Khan's around.
Mm-hmm.
We know they are all on Terror at the end of the siege. Bobby G turns up, the Lion's back to Caliban, telling off Luther and all the rest of it. But like, they are all accounted for Russ has gone into the warp. They are all still alive at the end of the heresy. Sanguinius, we know he's dead.
Yeah.
He ain't coming back.
Corvus went off into the warp in shame.
Yes, so there's a couple that have gone missing.
Didn't he kind of turn into a demon because of that? Because he was in the warp too long.
It's very loose. There's not much written on the Raven Guard, to be fair. Like, they kind of get lumped into the survivors of Isfan. Like, the Raven Guard and the Iron Hands kind of go around the galaxy.
I could be remembering it completely wrong, but from my memory, it was he tried to do something to increase his legion because he lost so many, and it was the gene seed was corrupted.
I think something like that.
And then he banished himself to the warp in shame.
He biffed it. He biffed it is what happened.
Yeah.
Now, the thing is, it's all very exciting. I like the idea of all these models coming back because I want to see the models.
Yeah.
Like, I love the idea of imagine the Khan on a giant jet bike at the front of like a huge like wedge of White Scars. Look, imagine, like, I think Russ will happen.
I like the comments of monster being in the Space Marine, in the Space Wolf Codex. There's no way he's not coming back because the only monsters you have in Space Marines are the Primarchs.
I know when he's coming back. I know when he's going to be announced. Christmas Day this year.
Oh, you reckon?
That makes sense.
That'll be the Christmas Day announcement.
Yeah, because didn't Lion get announced around that sort of time as well?
Lion was kind of like a ghost drop.
Yeah.
Because Dante got leaked, and the Lion and Dante are in the same arc moment.
I think they announced a bunch of Deathwing stuff on Christmas, and then the Lion a couple of weeks later.
Lion was a whole year before Deathwing. Lion was the end of night.
Insane?
Yeah, probably. The Lion came out just before Angron. The Lion came out
a while ago now.
He came out with the same time as
Time
Vastor.
means nothing anymore.
Yeah. Dante, Vastor, and the Lion came out all together, and Angron came out with the World Eaters, and then we had 10th. And then at that Christmas, they then revealed all the Deathwing.
So according to the internet with Khan, he disappeared about 70 years post-heresy.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And some speculate he dove into a warp portal chasing the Drakari.
Oh, yes, there's that whole rumour that there's talk, it's in one of the Drakari books.
He went off chasing an Archon or something.
That apparently on Comora, they have like the ultimate gladiator that they just test everything against. And the theory is that's the Khan. So basically they've got him and they've trapped him in the arenas, the fighting pits of Conra, and no one can beat the Khan. And they're just like enjoying watching him kill everything.
Cool. I really like that all of them like missing Loyalist Primarchs are kind of in a slightly different enough situation that they can. I'm just thinking like in terms of the storyline. Like of how things are getting of how they get discovered, of like you can go to a different sector and there can be a different big baddie that edition, and depending on that baddie, that's who's coming back.
Exactly right. Yeah, you could have like if the Necrons had like we're the big bad and like they're in a box with the Templars. The story is they go find Dawn, and then like the Drakari and the White Scars are fighting in the edition of the Fast Attack, and then they find Khan and stuff. But what I was going to say is that the thing is, it's all very exciting. You get all very excited about these things. But having played Age of Sigmar quite a bit, I loved the idea we had these giant big monsters and stuff, and it was really, really fun. And same with, say, Angron and Fulgrim. Sometimes I feel like the rules for them need to maybe be either one thing or another thing. I either feel like we need to go full hog and accept that we're going to have giant, scary monsters running around the battlefields, or we need to make them easily killable by bolt of fire. And I feel like at the moment we're kind of in a weird middle stage, and I'm not really sure if we then keep adding more and more of these giant characters in, are we kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Is 40k becoming something completely different to potentially what it is at its core, if you know what I mean?
I almost wonder if they are starting to anticipate that issue, because the latest mission pack, they've stated with incursion missions there are limitations on what types of units you can take. For example, you can't take any Titanic characters.
I think so, yeah.
I think that was it. So I wonder if they're anticipating that, so they will have unit restrictions for certain points games. And going back to my theory thinking about Heresy and the fact that it's 3,000 points, mostly because once you add in a Primarch and a big tank, that's like 1,000 points. If they will introduce a bigger version of 40k, to allow for things like the Primarchs to be there and be as powerful as they should be.
Yes. Because I think that was always my issue in Sigmar. We played a game many moons ago. And also, I don't know if this is true of the current edition of Sigmar, but I know when we did play it in 3rd, I want to say, you had, say, Gordrak. I love him. He's big. He is the embodiment of Gork, right? He's the fist of Gork. He's literally the biggest, baddest orc there ever has been. He's missing part of his face. He shouted so loud at a dragon, he tamed it. He's the ultimate bad,
I
right?
reckon I could do that.
He is the embodiment of destruction as a concept. But then you play the game with him and you're like, I've got some archers. And I just sort of killed him.
But then on the other hand, you've then got, what's his chops? The big...
Archaon.
Archaon and the
Nagash,
which are game breaking.
Yeah, but that's the thing, like that. But that.
So like you've got your big heroes, and then you've got your monstrous heroes.
Yeah. And that, but
it feels like they had the scaling a bit off. Like I know I held up a big old dinosaur with a single skeleton for an entire game.
And I think, but that's the thing, is that if we are going to have these huge monsters, like in Heresy, the game is obviously built around the Primarchs. It can't not be. You can then choose not to use them, but they are all, in theory, an intrinsic part of that game system. Mm-hmm. Is this a huge sea change? For good or for ill, it's just an exciting prospect of if we are seeing more and more Primarchs, is it all gonna be different?
I would very much like it if they did bring in more things of that kind of power level, that they did up the points and create like a new level of. I know it's
different game mode
taking it back to Heresy and bringing Heresy into 40k, but I like that they have the 3,000 points to allow those. So you can have your 2,000 points match play tournament games, and then you can have a 3,000 point game mode where you can take these and they're appropriately pointed and they have appropriate rules for what a Primarch should be.
Yeah.
But the only thing I have with that is that every faction would need something to make it work.
Because then, obviously, it's cool. You've got all the Primarchs for the Loyalists and Chaos. Mm-hmm. And I guess there's an extent you've got Ghazghkull Thraka. Yeah. You've got Morvenn Vahl. These characters are starting to crop up across all the factions. But what did you do with like Tau? Do you just get like a mega suit?
There's some. I have a few. I have some thoughts here.
Please.
Just to answer that question though, I think some factions could probably do without them.
Yes, I agree.
Tau, there isn't really like a main Tau person, and they'd be so small, it would just seem a bit weird, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I think Tyranids, like the idea of the hive mind supersedes any model that could be put on the battlefield.
They do have some like big monsters. They could make the Swarm Lord that level and actually differentiate the Swarm Lord from a Hive Tyrant a bit more.
But then you've got the new one was massive.
It would be cool to have
was massive, isn't
like an alien queen equivalent for Tyranids.
Yeah.
The Eldar have the Avatar Arcane, I suppose.
Yeah, they've got the Avatar.
And the Onari have the Incarn as well.
Yeah.
They've got two, effectively.
Yeah. Chaos have got 4,
which
is nice for
Chaos.
Chaos.
You've got the Silent King and all the
Orcs, you could make it Gaz.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
Well, interesting, Gaz and Abaddon have really fluctuated this edition to being unit leaders.
Yeah.
Whereas remember in 9th, like Abaddon was a Primarch effectively.
Yeah.
He was an absolute weapon.
He's still quite good. The issue I have with the Primarchs, and this isn't necessarily an issue, it's just more of a thought really. When you have Gaz surrounded by a load of orcs, it makes Gaz feel really powerful amongst an orc horde. With Space Marines now, there seems to be a couple of different directions going, because you've got the Primarchs, you've got the Line, you've got Guilliman, and maybe some other ones coming in the future. Outside of the game of 40k, you don't really see that. So in Space Marine 2, you've got 3 Space Marines that are knackering a whole heap of Tyranids by themselves. Yeah. And this is just like a lieutenant and a couple of dudes. In Secret Level, you've got a squad fighting off Tzeentch Chaos. So when you then go into 40k and your Space Marines become a little bit meaningless around a Primarch, it's got a very different vibe to how the IP is being used in other places. As a hobbying piece, of course, Primarchs are amazing because they're a centerpiece. But in the game, maybe it is becoming too big and Space Marines therefore then become really unimportant.
100%.
I think
perhaps they need like a different game type where you can do a 30k style army and then you have a different game type where it is Space Marines specifically, and this could be a way to help Space Marines, make them more important and a bit more impactful. Yeah, and having like one fight off 5 orcs or something like that. But then that becomes incredibly complicated. So
I think it's actually part of the issue with the balancing they have at the moment, in that we've mentioned this before, that Space Marines have become a Horde army, and they never should have been a Horde army.
The range is too big.
The range is too big, they're too cheap. Like, this is the problem, is that they need to differentiate everything because there's so many different units, but as a result, everything needs to be worth taking, and the only way they seem to be able to do that at the moment is by making things cheaper. So that people are incentivized to take them, but they're not, which is just compounding, and they're getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, and they're getting hordier and hordier and hordier. And they shouldn't be. I think if you had fewer Space Marines on a battlefield, that would feel more impactful. And then I do agree, like, there should be a separate mode where you let the Primarchs come in. It shouldn't be in a normal game because the Primarchs wouldn't take the field in a normal battle.
I wouldn't hate it if Angron and the Lion were like nearly 1,000 points. Because then if you're gonna, like, because the thing is now, we've discussed this.
And then you give them rules appropriate to a Primarch.
Like, Fulgrim probably isn't worth taking over the Demon Prince that just says more wounds at the church. And I think, unfortunately, the way the game is built currently, like what I was alluding to with Sigma, as soon as you have a giant model, they become such a bullet magnet that unless you make them, like, weirdly, the Lion, until the balanced data slate, wasn't worth taking. It wasn't worth taking. Whereas then you're like, okay, we give him fights first, he can uppy downy in the same turn, he's got 3 up invulnerable, he's -1 to wound, then suddenly you're like, actually he might be worth taking now.
Well, think about like the Angron problem of how to bring him back you have to sacrifice your army rules. Like, why would I ever bring back my Demon Primarch?
Like it becomes that thing, whereas if he was like world-shatteringly powerful, then you'd almost want it to be like, well, the only thing that can deal with Angron is Bobby G on the line. Like, you need someone that's strong enough to deal with that. I think Space Marines have... I was reminiscing the other day on the Dawn of War 2 cinematic trailer. And I thought, for me, that showed the balance of 40k quite well. Because you've got the Space Marines get ambushed by Eldar. And the Space Marines are really tough, but they're quite slow. And it's like, 5 Space Marines are fighting 5 Howling Banshees. By the end of that fight, everyone's dead. Because they should be on a relatively level pegging. I think the issue is now... 10 Gene Seal Occultists can probably easily deal with the Lion. And it's a bit like, obviously that's a whole separate conversation, but I think you're right. The only way is if we get to the point of, well then, the Lion is this many points and it requires 100 Gene Seal Occultists to fight him. And it's like, that's too big. It's too big.
An argument for more Primarchs,
yes, please,
I suppose, is that if you brought back a few of them, so you've got Guilliman, who could be like your every Primarch. You've got the Lion, you've got Khan on his jet bike, you've got Dorn as a dreadnought, maybe.
Dorn as a drop pod.
I don't know.
The Dawnmobile.
The Space Marine range has become so enormous. You could split off the different armor marks into different detachment types.
And
If you were running Iron Hands, bad example because I don't have a Primarch, but you would be able to get benefits for running Gravis and vehicles. If you were running the Khan...
Zordon, his head just in a jar.
If you had the Khan, you would get benefits for running bikes and speeders and... Fast attack,
your traditional
jump packs, blah, 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 blah. If you're running the Lion, he's with Dark Angels. So
they've got their own special thing going on.
It would allow for more...
Does Vulcan actually make sense to come back?
Maybe.
What would be his signature thing?
Fire boys! So you've got Infernus Marines and Melter guys and all that kind of stuff.
Aggressors and stuff,
yeah, for sure. So it would encourage Space Marines to then be a bit more themed rather than being just a random assortment of units.
Really cool.
But this comes back to another thing that I want to happen, which is the Space Marines being split out into books the way Chaos are. So that each one has its themed things, because then you can write the rules for that theme and you don't have the issue of, well, everything's got to have different rules, and because we've got over 100 data sheets, it then gets complicated to balance because you just split them and you balance it.
I could not agree more with Space Marines.
The other thing that they could do for a bit more variety, rather than be like, oh, I'll always take a Primarch in my made up White Scars army, which is all bikes that I've just come up with in my head.
Nice.
That would encourage Games Workshop to come up with rules for custom characters to lead your chapter. So you've got like a captain on bike and you've accessed the White Scars armory to give him
There's still no captain on bike, is there?
No.
Right.
To give him the Cyber Eagle of White Scars Town, and he's also got his curved blade of Chigoris and his cool stuff. For your other ones, you can make your own captain and make him really expensive because he's a hero that you've made up. So you're encouraged to either take your Primarch or take a character that you've made to run your chapter.
Just do it. Make it happen.
There's arguments for all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
But currently only having 2 seems like it's not enough.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
It weirdly feels like, I think...
And it feels like a weird 2. I understand them from a certain point of view, but I don't like it. For the Lion
makes sense because he's in charge.
He makes sense, but he's not interesting enough for me.
Well, the thing is there's... Are you aware of the Imperium Secundus? So it's part of the heresy where they all think the Emperor's dead. And Bobby G decides, well, if everyone's dead, I need to make a new Imperium. Yeah. And he starts it on Ultramar. And the Lion turns up as the only other Primarch to start with. That finds him. And
this comes out of the bush. Hello.
Pretty much. Because he's been really naughty and stolen a weird piece of technology that helps him zip through time and space. It just doesn't tell anyone because that's how the Lion rolls. And then later on, Sanguinius turns up and they elect him as the Emperor because, of course, it's Sanguinius. But what's really interesting is through that whole period of time, and what I loved and what made sense about the Lion coming back is that Bobby G and the Lion leave on terrible terms.
Oh, great.
Effectively, it's like they really don't agree with each other by the end of it, to the point of he literally, Bobby G snaps the Lion sword.
It's rude.
Snaps it over his knee.
Oh, wow.
After, they have a big fight over what to do about Conrad Kurz. And Conrad, gets in their head and basically, the Lion and Bobby G are fully, at each other. And then, Sanguinius banishes the Lion away. But then the Lion, as it always is, 'cause it's a big space opera, he's like, I'm sorry, and they all figure it out and they go on adventures together. But ultimately, those two do not agree on anything about how to run the Imperium. Yeah. So that, to me, makes complete sense that they would bring them back on either side of the rift.
I would really like it if they are going to bring back all the Primarchs, they go in order, and, the first ones they bring back are the ones that are just the most disagreeable, and they don't bring back the sensical ones until the end.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like Russ isn't going to get on with anyone.
Well, the Russ and the Lion fight all the time. Yeah. They hate each other as well. They do not respect each other.
Russ doesn't like anyone.
No, so I think there's I can see them if they're smart with how they bring them back. There's going to be a really good narrative drive through the Imperium of great, all the Primarchs are back, but they just cannot get it together to
In that case, I quite like Vulcan to be the last one to come back.
Because he's all captain friendly.
Nice.
The other argument then for the Primarchs coming back is that there's always been complaints that the story of 40k is no longer being moved along.
Yes.
Or it's going at an absolute snail's pace, or they're just scared to make big
Well, nothing's
changes.
really happening. We just keep going to different areas and being this thing's happening over here.
Yeah. So the returning Primarchs could then lure out other returning Primarchs. Yeah. So if Dorn comes back as a Black Templar, that will probably finally lure out Mr. Grumpy, Perturabo, from his misery chamber.
Do you want a Perturabo?
Well, yeah.
Yeah? Would you be really happy?
I mean, there's no range for him currently, but it'd be pretty cool.
Well, this is interesting. Given the success of the Nemesis Claw Kill team, given the success of all the unique stuff they're releasing, maybe after years of just being Space Marines are blue, they've all got bolt rifles, that they're learning actually what people really like about 40k is all the nuance.
Yeah.
So therefore actually, they'll do upgrades through for Iron Warriors. They'll do an upgrade. I feel like that's coming in my mind. That is what they're going to do.
It's going to take a very, very long time to get there, but I feel like that is an inevitability.
I don't think it necessarily would. I mean, if you did a Codex supplement style thing for some of the Undivided factions, they wouldn't need a lot, Iron Warriors. If you gave them Tyrant Siege Terminators, because they're really classic, Iron Warriors invented the Havocs. That's their own units. They could use
those.
Give them back. And then you just maybe give them their Basilisks back. Like they used to use in the Heresy, or some heavy ordnance stuff. Give them Perturabo. You've got all the demon engines you could ever want. You're good to go.
His protective robot boys still exist?
The Iron Circle? I don't know. Actually, I'm not sure.
Imagine them, but all warp infused and weird now. All the hounds or something with machine guns.
It'd be pretty cool. That's a gnarly unit in Heresy. So maybe I mean that would be a massive part of the army anyway. Demon Perturabo plus the Demon Iron Circle.
Man.
Bloody hell, mate.
But that's the thing. There's so much scope for them to do it, and I think the irony, the story does seem to has for many millennia, what it feels like, moved forward at such a slow pace. But then the last 2 years, we've had the Lion, Angron, and Fulgrim.
Dante.
And all the rest of it. like in terms of like
Vashtor.
Dante was knocking around before.
No, but like you had
new
the whole
characters.
Arcs of Omen story with Vashtor, Dante, and the Lion.
Yeah, they're all trying to smash up the rock. Like lots of stuff has happened, and it's suddenly like, whoa, hello. Like actually, if suddenly the Wolf Time happens and Ross comes back and all these kind of things, like it is starting to giddy up Buttercup. It's getting a bit like exciting.
What is the Wolf Time?
It's basically Ragnarok.
Past
Pseudo-Ragnarok.
11.
Yeah. It's like, i.e. like, they're sort of like, it's all going to boot off. We need Russ back.
Yeah.
Because this suggests it's sort of like Ragnarok, i.e. the end time.
Maybe the Lion and Gilliman will fight, and that'll be Russ has to come back and separate them.
I mean, if anyone, he's not separating any fight, is he?
He'll
He's not
start-
biting ears.
Hit him again! He broke his sword!
Yeah.
He'll join in so he can show that he's the best.
But yeah, like there's like you know, there's the classic Gilliman line of all my brothers, why did it have to be him, in reference to the Lion turning up. They don't like each other really because they're very similar. They are leaders they're not just fighters, they're very much the like commander-in-chiefs of their legions. So I think that's a very interesting dynamic. I think there's so much scope for what they could do, and there's so many amazing models they could release. I just feel like I want to make sure they get the rules right first. So we're not in a period of time where they release all these Primarchs and all these really cool things, but everyone then gets a bit of a sour taste in their mouth about those models. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't want to be in a situation where everyone's like, oh, they're busted and everyone's got one. And then it feels not very special because every army has a Primarch on the battlefield. Or they're then just rubbish and no one takes them and everyone's like, oh, they're pants, just take Hellblasters instead.
That's why I think we need to they need to bring in restrictions in certain modes of play so that they can make them as bonkers as they should be without having to worry about that's broken competitively, so we can't do that.
Yeah, or just you don't take them in competitive.
Yeah,
like
this is what I mean. Just have it a restriction in tournament play. Like you cannot take.
You don't take the Primarchs.
Primarch level.
Yeah,
characters.
They're not designed to run around taking circles off the battlefield. Like they are there to deal with other Demon Primarchs. Like I think that would be really, really interesting, and just having that nuance would allow them to breathe a bit better. Who do we think's next then? Do you think it's Russ?
Well, I mean, with that hint, it has to be Russ.
Do you think it's Russ? Do you think anyone else is going to be like, if they did the Lion and Angron close together, do you think anyone else is going to come at the same time as Russ?
I feel like if they are going to bring another Demon Primarch back, the most likely would be Lorgar.
I think there'll be a break for a while.
Yeah.
For
You reckon?
Chaos.
Yeah. I feel like to bring another Demon Primarch back, they're going to have to evolve Chaos a lot.
Well, they need to introduce a new faction.
Yeah.
Effectively.
Pretty spicy.
Battle.
Well,
I mean,
Vashtor's
Vashtor's sort of his own thing. He's technically a demon prince in a way. He's weird. He's really odd.
I wonder if they're going to do something to give him his own little
Surely they've got to do something with him.
faction.
I'm drifting further and further away from Darkmech.
You reckon it's not happening?
Well, with the weirdness going on at the moment with Chaos Demons, I wonder because I love Laurie's idea from the show we did recently, where like they do like a more futuristic, like techie demon kind of faction. That would be really
Use all the demon
cool.
engines and stuff. Almost like Doom. Have them like the Doom demons.
Exactly, yeah, that would be amazing. But yeah, in terms of like another Chaos Space Marine faction, I think it'll be years before they do that. They need to focus on Space Marines because Space Marines are in a weird spot.
They need to fix Space Marines.
They are just in a bit of a mess.
Just go with the success of the four sub factions.
I think they should all become codexes.
Yeah.
Not sub factions, the four main factions.
Because it would be so easy for, especially Blood Angels and Dark Angels that do have their own like decent model range.
There are four, aren't there? There's Space Wolves, Dark Angels, Black Templars, and Blood Angels.
But I feel like Blood Angels and Dark Angels have the best like range to them to split out.
Dark Angels are
pretty good.
They don't have that much
They
unique.
do use it's
Really?
interesting, isn't it?
Because their troops are Sword Brethren and Crusader squads.
We'll say with Blood Angels and Samurai Guard and Death Company, otherwise it's all just
Space Marines.
Space Marines.
That's true.
Same as Dark Angels is different because they obviously have the Raven Wing. The Raven Wing hasn't been redone yet.
I can
I reckon
see
it
that
will.
next
Oh,
edition.
please.
Edition of the bike.
Please.
It's the edition of the Terminator. Next is the edition of the bike.
Yep. I think there's still more Terminators to come, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's the thing. Like you could, because there's four of them, you could split them all into codexes. Like the Chaos Gods, you would just have Codex
And
Blood
then
Angels,
that's
Codex
what you
Dark
get
Angels.
each edition is instead of a new Chaos faction coming out, you get a new Space Marine.
It would also massively fix the army rule problem of like, well, you can have the army rule, but not the whole army rule if you have the fancy units. Just have it like Space Marines get Vindicators and Lancers. Blood Angels don't, but they get Sanguinary Guard and the Sanguinor, vice versa and whatnot. They have their own cool stuff. Now, to round us out then, if you could pick a Primarch, any Primarch to bring back, what one would it be? Could be Demon or Loyalist, it's up to you. And also, how would you like to see that happen?
I would really quite like Lorgar to come back at the head of a Wordbearer's army that mixes the demons back into it.
So like Lorgar and Demonkin.
Lorgar and Demonkin, yeah. Because I feel like he'd be an excellent Demon Primarch. They'd make him look really cool. The Wordbearers are just really, really cool. And it makes sense for the demons. You bring back all the summoning mechanics.
Yeah.
In a more balanced way.
So cool.
Honestly, I'm really excited for Russ.
Really excited for us.
Yeah, I'd like him to come. I don't think he's going to come back as a giant werewolf man. I think he's going to come back sort of in that with the new Space Marine aesthetic, like big beardy Odin looking guy.
If he comes back as Odin with like the...
He should have an eye patch.
I think he's going to...
That would really be cool.
Yeah, I think he's going to look not withered at all. I think he's going to look quite gnarly. He's not going to have like chaos stuff on him or anything like that. I don't think he's going to be a big mutant. I think he's just going to be a massive Viking warrior that's just stepped out of the warp.
That would be really cool.
Feels like no time's passed, but all the time's passed.
Yeah.
The Emperor for Custodes. He has 100 wounds, hits on -1, cannot be stopped.
Yeah.
Every attack is devastating.
Yeah.
No, I think genuinely, like, I
Put the golden throne on wheels. Here he comes.
big guns on the side, yeah. He is old and he is tired. No, genuinely, I actually, when we discussed it the other day, and it kind of the penny dropped of like, it would make sense if Dorn came back for the Black Templars. And I think you could make that such a different take on him. Like, yes, he was the ultimate stoic, unbreakable defender of the Imperium, but 10,000 years have gone by and he's not a happy bunny anymore. He's let the gloves off.
It'd be such an interesting change. But would he then be too similar to the Lion?
Well, no, because the Lion's still very much like, I'm in control, I'm the Lion. I like the idea of Dorn is just broken inside.
Yeah.
You know that bit in...
Have him be like almost kind of the equivalent of anger and of just rage.
Yeah, like when in
Pious
the siege.
rage.
Yeah, in the siege when he's like tells Sigismund just hurt them. He's like he's that side round now.
Yeah.
He's not trying to defend anything. He's like, no, me and the Templars, I stood there and held the line. The rest of you all squabbling and going on your adventures. I protected Daddy, and now he's like, I've lost it, and then he's just gonna go mental and start headbutting things.
Don't fall back on your chair, please.
Do you want him to be on foot, or do you want him to be entombed in a dreadnought?
Foot. I want him to be absolutely battered though.
Yeah.
So like maybe even actually I don't even want a robot arm. He's just got one arm. Like he's got a big cape and he's just got a big sword and
I
one
like
arm.
that. No,
Doesn't
I
need
actually
both
really,
his
really
arms.
like that.
Because then it's that kind of thing of like it would.
Or is
prove-
it his hand that's missing, not his whole arm?
Maybe he's cut the whole arm off. I don't know. I don't need this. Let me cook. But imagine he's
What's
just
the
like
massive sword as well? Like the huge one that's usually two-handed.
A claymore?
Claymore.
Yeah,
Well,
can you have that?
he's got his sword is what's it called? Storm's Teeth.
I'm not sure.
Is it a
His
claymore?
sword is a claymore chainsword.
Oh, yeah.
Which is wicked. So imagine
because
that. but he's-
wielding that with one hand.
Yeah, over is like that.
Yeah.
Also, because it's that thing of like if you played Dark Souls 1, you fight Artorias, which is like the ultimate fighter in ever, basically. But when you fight him, his arm's broken. So
He
he's
should-
using his offhand.
Instead of
so that's how you
a
have a chance to fight him. That would be cool with Dawn.
instead
but
of
actually,
a robot hand, he should have a relic fused to his hand.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd
Yeah,
be
like
very
some
Templar-esque.
sort of like reliquary or something
Yeah.
that he carries. Like that, I just think that'd be really cool to really change it up of like old man Dawn, big moustache, eye patch, missing an arm.
Apparently,
huge
all of
sword.
them. We want all of them to have eye patches. Apparently.
Eye patches are cool.
That's so cool.
Eye patches are very cool.
You expect him to have a bionic eye though, wouldn't you, being 40k?
Yeah, but that's just Dawn.
That'd be fine.
I almost feel like I
Russ,
like.
I feel like almost needs to have an eye patch to
Yeah.
be like Odin.
Well, yeah, and he also, there's not many places in the warp to get those fitted.
No.
Yeah, I just like the idea of Dawn just almost, he's gone full analog. There's no tech, it's just him
Yeah.
and sword.
Yeah.
It would be cool. It would be, if it would be quite a departure for Games Workshop to do something so out of left field, but I wonder if this
Well,
has been the
it'd be
plan all
nice.
along. They've introduced the Templar so he could eventually
Because
return.
if you think about towards the end of the siege, he's sort of like, I wish I could just go out and fight.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm sick of handling
Yeah.
all the paperwork and being in command. He's like, I just want to go on the walls now. He's like, I'm done. I just want to go fight people. I'm sick of all of this. And also after the whole like, blood, when he's in the weird maze at the end of the siege,
Oh, in the
Khorne's
desert.
trying to get him.
Yeah.
Like he could imagine that book, like The Son of the Forest, if you had like Dawn, the revenging son.
Yeah.
Oh,
His mind's a bit broken.
poor Dawn. Anyway, what a lovely conversation.
That's fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I feel like either it's going to be a Primarch party or a Primarch problem, but there's a disturbance in the Force, and I think lots of them are soon to arrive, I reckon. It's happening. You heard it here first! Until next time, I've been James Jordan, aka The Bard. I've been joined by Katie Fode, Primarch of the Tyranid Legion, and Chaos Lord Beard, second in command to Perturaba of the Iron Warriors. Would you like to take charge?
I don't think I'm grumpy enough to be in charge of the Iron Warriors.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
People like Forex, so the second in command.
I'll be one of the Trident.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. We've been Tailed Tactics. I will see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.